Yeah, that's I kind of went through a Madonna thing. That kind of looks like I did when I got to the University of Tennessee and was lost. Yes, we would have been friends and we would have smoked cigarettes and not gotten a thing done and probably failed out of school. I can tell people that I would have had too much fun with, and people that I should have hung out with. But I think Dusty and I would have had a ball, danced. I think we would have clubbed. Brian probably would hang out.
Yeah.
Kind of like Chuck Morgan. He's not fun. And I was like, and he chased me. He chased me because I was exciting, And then when he was trying to get me, he bought me cigarettes. And then he started saying, after we dated for a while, "You smell bad." I know. And then he begged me to come back. I was working at Lancome behind the makeup counter. He had dumped me, and I was devastated. Oh. And then he came back to be at the mall. He'd bought a business and moved up to the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And came back. I had been to Fort Lauderdale as a third wheel with a couple for spring break, got a tan. He saw me with a tan and wanted me back. He saw me with a tan, could not get his breath, and said, "Can I buy you a pair of tennis shoes?" And I said, "Maybe." It was, and I'm pretty with a tan. And so then I tell my children all the time, I go, "Y'all's lives are based on the fact your daddy saw me with a tan." That is in the book.
There you go.
About Chuck Morgan. I did. I don't know. He always, I don't know why at the time, maybe I said I need tennis shoes, you butthole. I don't know. But he's always bought me things and tried to woo me because he's not a words of affirmation kind of person, which is really what I need. But that's okay. So his love language is acts of service. So he always does for me, like vacuuming out my car. And then it's good to have babies by somebody like that.
Okay.
And then also wants to buy and provide for me. He's a provider. So he wants to do for me, and he's always giving me beautiful gifts. I would like to be told you've been a good mama, that kind of stuff. But he'll say, my family, we didn't do that. And I go, well, because I'm 58, I don't want that sun damage. But I do get a spray tan. And I mean, it drives him wild. It does. But yeah, it sets him on fire, even though it ruins our sheets. And he's clean. He's a clean person. But anyway, I talk about it in my book, What in the World That Almost Killed Me. I've worked on that book for over 2 years, and I'm proud of it. But it has been, was a lot to do. But it was fun, but it was also emotional, like just remembering and going through. And, the bottom line after I wrote that thing, I thought, man, I was stupid. I'm a stupid. But then then I read the audio part, and I've kind of forgiven that 17 to 25-year-old. I had to give her grace, and go, you know what, girl, you did the best you could with what you had at the time. So it's been very cathartic. And now I'll go on a book tour and I'll talk about it. I'm kind of sick of talking about myself, but I've got to go and tell everybody all this again. I do have a moderator at 2 of them, big events, one in Knoxville and one in Atlanta. And then the other ones, like in Mount Juliet, I'll be here at the Books A Million. And I think you can buy a book that I've signed, and then we get our picture made. I think there's no talking, and I'm certainly not doing a show. This has almost killed me, but I'm glad I did it. I always felt like I had a book in me. Yeah. Do y'all feel like that? Because they told me that when they interview people that have written books, that most people say, like, I knew I had one in me. And I always felt that tug. Yeah. And I tried years ago, I had some interest somebody gave some interest in me doing one, and I wrote the first chapter just for them to see my point of view. And Chuck Morgan went in and corrected it and put big red circles around it and said, "How did you get in the University of Tennessee?" I said, "Well, it was 1983 and you only had to have a 12. It was only a 12. I didn't get a 12, but I heard that some of the boys that played football, they only required them to have a 12. Maybe it was higher for little country girls, but I didn't have that low, but I had low. Well, I took my ACT, and my sister at Austin P, she was in Austin P. I went to her dorm, spent the night. I'm not saying this made it higher if this hadn't happened, but we didn't have cable in Adams, Tennessee yet. So I watched Benny Hill all night. I'd never seen anything like it, and I was so thrilled. And then I was like half dead, went to the McDonald's, burned my tongue real bad on some coffee. And then I feel like I just went in there and just went. But let me tell y'all that my kids, when they want to know my ACT score, and I've never told them. And I said, it'll go to my grave. And so when I get the flu and I'm have high fever and I'm hallucinating, they go, "What was that ACT score?" Because they're trying to get it out of me, but they'll never get it. But then let me tell y'all this. I got in 2012, I was honored that the University of Tennessee had me as Alumni of the Year, 2012, but just for arts and entertainment. There were like people there that had been in stuff and scientists and all that. But I was the arts and entertainment, and we went to a big dinner, and the whole time I was sweating, thinking they're going to tell my GPA. I thought they're going to tell because I finally graduated. It took me 9 years on and off because I quit, went back, and then finished. But I thought they're going to tell people my GPA. And I sat there next to Chuck Morgan, who got an undergraduate and an MBA and made straight A's, and nobody gave him an award. And honest to goodness, I wanted to tell all of the horrible things I ever did. And my literary agent, who is darling and so funny, he goes, honey, you're not Joan Crawford yet. He goes, let's wait to tell all that stuff because he goes, let's do a cookbook maybe next time, little cookbook. Yeah. And then the third one, when you're an old woman, tell all the horrible, stupid things you did. I do have a lot of horrible, stupid things I did in this one, but it wasn't everything. Well, and I can tell y'all that I think I'm just at a point in my life where I don't care who knows. I don't care. I can tell it. I've been washed in the blood. Yep. I'm all right. I know I'm okay. I'll tell you about little Burt Reynolds. This is crazy. He shot his last movie that he ever made called The Last Movie Star in Knoxville, Tennessee. And nothing shot up there. I mean, it used to be Food Network and Scripps and all that was up there, and there was a lot of production, but never movies or television. My friend happened to work on it. It was crazy. And they did this movie, and I've watched it, and Burt Reynolds was out of this world in it, and he was in his late 80s. Okay, my friend invited me to the premiere, and little Burt Reynolds walked in, honey, on a cane with a velvet jacket and rose-colored glasses. And it was a perm. I don't know if it was a perm, a wig, what was sitting on that little thing's head. And we locked eyes because I feel like I still had my bloom. I mean, it's been a few years ago. And he looks at me. It was like he'd gotten a little, down on a cane, but still had that Burt Reynolds. Yeah. Burt Reynolds was still in there. And he looked at me like, I know you're attracted to me right now with this cane and this wig on my head. And I was like, and I would never do anything unbiblical toward Chuck Morgan. But I just had that thing. But Chuck Morgan, when we met at UT, bought a used mobile home business in Bean Station, Tennessee, moved me up there. And that's in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains where there were people who, it's beautiful up there and stunning lakes and all that kind of stuff. But there are people he set up houses for that did not know who the president was, build dirt floors and that kind of thing. But absolutely precious people. Well, let me tell y'all that I went one time to get one of my girls a prom dress, and we were coming through a volleyball tournament or something. We stopped in Asheville, North Carolina, and the woman and her husband were in there, and he looked half dead, and she said, "Girl, I've gotten on testosterone pellets, and I have worn him out." And he goes, "I own a Domino's pizza franchise, 2 stores." And he said, "I can barely work." Because she was so tickled with him. Testosterone pellets in women. She owned a prom store, kept that going, and almost killed that little man trying to run 2 Domino's. He said, she's killing me because it raises women if they put a pellet in. I had that happen to me in Florida at a Marriott, and it started going off and just loud, horrible noise. I get up, put on my pants, grab my purse. I have on I don't know if I had a gown on. I think I got dressed because I thought, I've still got dexterity. I can get dressed, go down this thing. Women came out. It was a scrapbooking convention going on. I was there. I had a show. I can't remember where it was. It wasn't Sarasota. Somewhere I'd done a show. Well, little women that I guess thought something bad was wrong. It was the laundry room, a dryer sheet, something was wrong, but not bad. But I thought, I'm going to put on my underpinnings. I'm not going to come out here with no underwear on. Everybody else came out of bed, no purse, nothing. Everybody, I just sat down there and had a ball. I met more people. But women, you could see through their gowns. It was awful. The first thing I thought is everybody needs to go and buy new sleepwear. Everybody looked terrible. And then they weren't terrible. Their clothes, you could see everything. And then some of them had on those a sweatshirt that said, what stays what happens in scrapbooking stays in scrapbooking. A lot of them had that T-shirt on, no bra. But I think they may get to a Marriott and let loose. I think. I mean, they looked like they were having a ball. But this was in the middle of the night. And then I went back upstairs, and then it happened again. And we all had to go back down. But the fire chief came, all that came. It was exciting. It was balmy outside. We had a ball. I talked to more people about Ace Hardware, I remember. Anyway, you know me, I talked to a pole. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of was a big deal. In front of that fountain at the Marriott. I've been touring heavy. I'm now into my, I think, into my third 100. Well, what am I in? I did over 100 shows for Big Panty. Then I'm still in the Just Getting Started tour, and I'm now gone into 200 shows, I think. Wow. But I took off so that I could be with my family and my babies before I moved to Los Angeles temporarily. A Chuck Lorre show on Netflix, and I'm thrilled. I'm tickled, and I'm scared. I'll just tell y'all, I'm scared. I've never done anything like that, and I'm scared. But he was darling. He flew to my house in Knoxville and met my family and held my grandbabies, and he's precious to me, darling. And we've got the writing staff and all that, and so they've written the pilot, and then I'm a writer on it, so I rewrite what I think needs punching up or whatever, or what I would say, what I wouldn't say, and then they're casting now. They've casted most. So I go out there. I have to be out there to shoot the first pilot in October, and I've got my book tour in September, so we're just going to try to throw some suitcases in a yard in LA, throw our panties in a drawer, and then take off for the book tour, and then I'll come back and shoot that. But it's 16 episodes, 2 seasons. They're gonna do it in 7 months, but I'll come back and forth. And I told Nate I'll be on the road some doing, to stay on stage and to be able to work, but mostly out west, so that I can shoot it. My next Netflix special is I'm going to shoot it in June. I think I'm going to shoot it in Wilmington, North Carolina. I know I'm tickled. I thought Dallas is a good place for me, and I wanted to do Majestic, but they're working on that theater, doing something, shutting it down. But I thought Wilmington, North Carolina would be darling, but that's in June next year. So I hope I can, Lord, I couldn't do that. But I play Reese Witherspoon's big sister, Gwyneth, and you're cordially invited with Will Ferrell. I know, it was so fun and crazy and darling. And everybody wanted me to win. Everybody was precious. Nick Stoller directed, who did Saving Sarah Marshall. So he was a doll. And so, that comes out. I think it got pushed further away because of the SAG-AFTRA. I liked it. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. And I got, you get bored out of your mind. But I was sitting there talking to Jack McBrayer and all these darling people. I had a ball with the cast. But it's a lot of waiting around, and I'm not used to that. And I was scared. I was scared to death at first. I was scared through the whole thing. But once you realize how things work, Sweet Fortune Beamster said to me, Leanne, there's a piece of tape on the floor. Go stand on it and say your line. That's how little I knew. So she helped me. Everybody would give me pointers. Jack McBrayer behind the camera, and energy, Leanne. I mean, everybody was precious to me. I was scared to death looking in Will Ferrell's eyes to say, I had one line, I had one word in a scene where I had to say, so, and I looked in his eyes. I looked, and I was like, got a horrible feeling. I thought, what? And then it dawned on me. I went, so they're pros. I know why they're pros. Yeah. Little Reese said to me, because I said, how am I going to learn lines? I get too nervous, and then I got to say a line. And she goes, there's an app, and you can, study your lines and do that kind of stuff. But they told me this television show is going to be more like a play. It's more like a play, multicam in front of a live audience.